Thanksgiving night, I was over at my parents' house for dinner since they were hosting this year. I got to see some cousins and uncles I hadn't seen in almost a year. We had a typical Thanksgiving gathering for our family. My parents cooked a big meal as usual. Before dinner, though, I got a long essay of a text from some unknown number. I won't share it because it contains a lot of personal revealing details, but it started with, "Hey Melissa, hope your Thanksgiving is going well." Then I quickly came to realize who it was that sent this text. It was this crazy stalker guy named Kevin, who I'd never even met before. We matched on a dating app and texted and snapped for a while, but we never met. He gave me obsessive vibes, and when I politely rejected going on a date with him, saying I don't think we have much in common, he got even more obsessive and aggressive. He even threatened me one time when I posted a Snap story of my friend and I getting drinks because he thought I was on a date with a guy. That was when I blocked him on everything: Snapchat, Instagram, and his number. But the contact didn't stop there. I got random Instagram accounts with 0 followers attempting to follow me, and I blocked them each time. Same thing on Snapchat. I'd get random accounts adding me with different guys' names every time. Whenever I'd add them back out of curiosity, their Snap scores were always 0. After reading the entire message, I was disgusted. He was gaslighting me and borderline threatening me. I replied, "If you keep contacting me, I will go to the police." I took so long to form a reply I was okay with that my grandma got annoyed and asked me to put my phone away. It was only out of sight and out of mind for me for half an hour before I got another text from another random number. It was another essay. I didn't want to completely ruin my mood and be on my phone dealing with this when I was with family. I put my phone away and just tried to focus on being a part of the conversation. When family started to leave and things started to slow down, I checked the text, and it was disturbing. It was longer than the first one, and it was him berating me and insulting me the entire time, acting like the entitled, narcissistic sociopath that he clearly is. When there was just a small amount of my family left, I showed them the texts, and they were appalled. My mom wanted me to go to the police the next day to report him for harassment, which I planned on doing. I soon left my parents' house to go home to my apartment. My apartment is the lower floor of a 2-family house. My friend Chelsea is my roommate. In the apartment, I got home before her and went straight to my room to look for Christmas movies to watch. My phone started ringing, and it said unknown caller. I knew it was him. I denied it and silenced my phone. I put on some silly rom-com Christmas movie to fall asleep to. It was called Surviving Christmas. All I remember about it is that it had James Gandolfini in it. It was late at night, so I didn't plan on making it through the movie. I was getting sleepy halfway through the movie when I heard walking from outside my room in the house. It was in the apartment, not from upstairs, so I assumed it was Chelsea getting home from her night with her family. The footsteps came straight to my door, then someone attempted to open my door. I always lock my bedroom door at night, even though I trust Chelsea. It's just a natural habit I have. I paused the movie and listened as the doorknob turned a few more times before I yelled, "Chelsea." Then it stopped. I heard quiet footsteps walking away from the door. I grabbed my phone, about to call Chelsea, and I saw a bunch of texts on my screen from a third random number. The most alarming one was a threat saying, "Good thing you made it obvious where you live." I tried calling Chelsea like 5 times, but she never picked up. I called my parents a bunch of times until my dad picked up, and I whispered into the phone that I think that crazy stalker was in the house. My dad said to stay put, he was coming over right away. We lived 10 minutes away from each other, but he made it to me in 5. That's how fast he drove here. During that time, I stayed on the phone with my dad the whole time until Chelsea called me back, and that's when she told me that she wasn't coming back to the apartment tonight, so it for sure was not her. When my dad got here, the front door was locked. I had to let him in. I swore to him that I wasn't imagining what happened, and so after we tore the place upside down, he went to the big sliding window by the kitchen, big enough that anyone could fit through, and he lifted it open. He turned to me and gave me a stare of disappointment. He scolded me after learning that I didn't lock the window every night and said, "Here's my answer on how someone got in here." I went back home with him and slept at home that night. First thing in the morning, my dad took me to the county court's office where they gave us step-by-step instructions for getting a temporary restraining order. Skipping most of the legal process of the story, I eventually did see Kevin in person when I had to go to court to get the restraining order extended. The judge granted the extension, and though I could never prove he broke into my apartment, his threatening texts were plenty, and if he ever contacts me again through any outlets, he'd be arrested. This was a truly dangerous man, and I hope he hasn't found anyone else to harass. As Thanksgiving knocks on the door, a dark memory is rushing back to me. I don't celebrate this tradition anymore because of what happened 2 years back. I am a 19-year-old average height girl currently living in California. My hometown is a small town in Georgia. Being an only child, I have always been a pampered kid. My parents were high school lovebirds who immediately got married after finishing high school. My dad owned quite a lot of land, hence we were more well off than many people living in the town. He inherited his father's house, and from outside, we were the picture-perfect family in everyone's eyes. But what happened inside the house was only known to us. We lived in the outskirts, right beside vast paddy fields. My dad had a Chevy and often drove us to the market whenever we needed things. Even though everyone thought my parents were perfect for each other, they fought like animals every night. I guess with time the young love died, and harsh reality surfaced for them. My dad screamed at my mother, and she abused him in every way possible. Between the two of them, my mom was the most toxic one, I believe. I saw her slapping my dad and pushing him many times, but my dad never raised a hand at her. Our society has this weird mindset that domestic abuse can only happen one way. I love both my parents equally, but whenever my mom hit my dad and screamed at him using obscene language, I hated her. Increasing toxicity led to the usual consequence, divorce. My dad had to bear a lot as my mom went on giving suicidal threats if he divorced her. It was the most disgusting phase of our lives. Our so-called happy family broke apart, and my mom stayed in Georgia while I came to California with my dad. My dad's lawyer proved how she abused him for years, and I too sided with my dad on this. Tears rolled down his eyes when he got my custody. But one thing I noticed that day which no one did, my mom didn't say a single word. She stared at me with a blank face for a few seconds and then quietly walked out of the courtroom. That was probably the last time I saw her until I turned 18 and a horrifying tragedy happened last year. My dad didn't keep any contact with my mom after the divorce, but he never stopped me from being in touch with her. I talked to her over the phone at times, and that was it. Sometimes I missed her, but then I realized those painful nights watching my mom hitting and kicking my dad, and my dad bearing this humiliation and insult for my sake. The awful memories of his past hit him so hard that he was scared to fall in love again. He kept to himself and raised me with the utmost care. It was probably my 7th grade PTA meeting when my dad found a new ray of hope in his life. He fell in love again with my English teacher, Melissa. She was a kind lady, and I liked her. They hit it off quite well, and soon she moved in with us. When my mom found out about this, she was obviously not happy, but this time she didn't create a scene and quietly disconnected the call. It was a week before Thanksgiving. I was sitting in my room, going through some brochures, thinking about where to go for college when my mom called. I picked it up immediately as it had been a month since I had spoken to her. "Hi, Mom." "Hello, my pumpkin, how are you?" "I'm good." Mom?" "Yes, my dear. Are you all right? I know the time has been hard for you, and trust me, none of us want to hurt you. It's just Dad is happy, and maybe we should all be happy for him." "Oh, you are going to be such a lovely lady, I know, pumpkin, and you're right. Can you please put me on speaker and call your dad?" All these years, my parents never spoke after the divorce. My mom never asked for my dad. Hearing her say this, my heartbeat grew faster. I called my dad, and he entered the room along with Melissa. "Hello, Daisy." "Hi, James. Hope you're in good health. What was it you wanted to talk about?" I know I have done you wrong and never apologized for that. Honestly, I was so ashamed that I couldn't. So here I am, asking for one last thing from you and my daughter this Thanksgiving. Will you guys visit me? You can also bring Melissa. I would love to meet her. Just give me one more chance to have a good time with my family. I saw my father's face turn cold, and he looked at me, then at Melissa. He was going to say no when Melissa grabbed his hand and said in a low voice, "She's Courtney's mom, James. She too deserves to spend Thanksgiving with her daughter, and it has been 10 years now, just for a few days." My respect for Melissa grew more that day as I witnessed her kind heart. My dad agreed, and my mom said from the other side of the phone, "See you all at Thanksgiving then." We decided to reach there the day before Thanksgiving. Stepping into my hometown, I couldn't help but recall all the childhood memories I made here. The green paddy field still stood there, making our house the only shelter on the outskirts. But due to poor maintenance, I could see the house losing its usual luster. We knocked on the door, and my mom opened it in one go like she was waiting right on the other side. She hugged me tightly and then looked at my dad. "Hi, James. Please come in." We stepped in, and I introduced her to Melissa. Surprisingly, my mom went close to her and hugged her as well. My dad and I were both shocked to see her react so calmly. We all sat down and started to talk. My mom served us homemade lemonade, and after a long time, I felt my family was complete. But this feeling didn't last long as I realized my mom hasn't changed entirely. Though she was constantly bringing up topics involving an incident of their married life and trying to make Melissa feel like an outsider. She went to the kitchen, and my dad started apologizing to Melissa for my mom's mean behavior. I could see them regretting coming here, and I too felt this year's Thanksgiving is not going to be how I expected. I told my dad that we will leave the next morning ASAP. He went to the kitchen, probably to tell my mom not to bring up the past in front of Melissa. I took Melissa to my room to cheer up her mood. Getting our support and attention, Melissa's mood elevated, and we were laughing and talking like before. 10 minutes went by when my mom came in and stopped. She stared at me and Melissa with a cold face and said, "Oh, you are here. I was looking for you everywhere. You know, Melissa, my daughter is a sweetheart. She and I spent a huge time decorating this room. She often said how no one can replace me in her life. You know what, Daisy? Your daughter is right. No one can replace a mother, but sadly you had such a beautiful family, and you ruined it all." Melissa walked out of the room like a badass, and I saw my mom's face turn red. Somehow, she got a long-needed lesson, and we all sat down for an awkward Thanksgiving dinner. While having the turkey, I found a wishbone. I decided to split it with my dad. My mom said to me, "Be careful what you wish for," and smiled. Honestly, I wished what any daughter would, harmony between my mom and my dad so that I don't have to choose between them. Somehow, we finished the rest of the dinner and went to bed. It was around 3 a.m. when I heard heavy breathing falling on my face. I opened my eyes and saw my mom standing near my bed in the dark. "What are you doing here?" I shouted in fear. She gave a very bizarre smile, and her one eye twisted, making her look creepy. Then she said in a calm voice, "I know you wished for our family to be happy again, didn't you, pumpkin?" Before I could reply to her question, my eyes went to her hands, and I saw she was holding something in both her hands, and water was dripping from those things. I jumped through the switchboard on the other side and turned on the light. "What have you done? You don't have to choose anymore, pumpkin. Now you will have me by your side forever. What is Thanksgiving without thanking our loved ones for their sacrifice? I am thankful to your father and this expletive for sacrificing their life to reunite a mother to her daughter." I couldn't keep my sanity anymore. I picked up the night lamp and hit my psycho mom hard on the head. She wasn't expecting this and fell on the floor screaming in pain. I went on hitting her until her brain matter came out. She took away everything from me, and now the one person whom I loved the most, my poor innocent dad. When I was done with my anger, I called 911 myself, smeared in my mother's blood. I waited for the cops to arrive. I am the youngest woman prisoner in this high-security facility with a supposed chance of parole, maybe. But I am not going to ask for it. I am going to spend my entire life in this dark cell because I have no one to call family now. The outside world is way scarier than the world inside this prison, and I have had enough. No more family, no more Thanksgiving for me, that goes without saying. It was Black Friday 2013, and I decided to be one of those people who gets up at 3 a.m. to get some early deals. Home Depot was having crazy deals on artificial Christmas trees, so I wanted to get there early and buy one for my family. They opened their doors at 3 a.m. on the spot, 3 hours earlier than usual for Black Friday. Surprisingly, only me and one other guy were waiting to get in. I guess everyone else was at Best Buy or the mall. I found a nice 9-foot-tall artificial Christmas tree, originally for $200, but at that moment half off for only $100. I asked one of the few employees working at that hour to help me carry the box to the checkout and then to my car. The parking lot was still surprisingly empty for Black Friday. I figured maybe I didn't have to come so early. I tipped the guy and got in my car, ready to leave, when someone knocked on my window. I lowered the window and saw some guy in his mid-20s, wearing a beanie, black and tall, leaning into my window asking if I had change. I opened the little compartment between the seats where I normally keep change, and it was actually empty. I didn't want to have to hand him a $10, so I said, "Nah, man, sorry." He looked disappointed, and I actually felt bad. He then asked me if I could give him a lift to the nearest gas station. I was a bit nervous about letting a stranger in my car, but guess what? I let him in. He did not thank me, which kind of hurt, I guess, because I'm a little sensitive. I asked him if he knew of any close-by gas stations. He just said, "Nah." A few seconds later, I asked him why he needed to go to a gas station, and I swear to God he didn't answer. It's not like he didn't hear me, he just flat out ignored me. I stopped looking at him at that point because I was feeling a bit uncomfortable. I kept driving down main and side roads, but there were no goddamn gas stations anywhere. I was trying not to look in his direction, but I could tell he was staring at me every turn I made, every stop sign I stopped at. He was staring at me. I was sweating now. This guy was freaking me out. I felt like at any moment he could just grab my throat and I'd be done for. At last, I could see a gas station just beyond a light, which had just turned red. Why did it have to turn red just now? I thought to myself. I could still feel his stare, even as I looked the other way. I finally decided to sum up the courage and looked at him. I felt his cold, emotionless stare run straight through my eyes into my soul. Are you okay? I asked him. He ever so slightly nodded his head, almost not even noticeable. The light turned green, and I pulled into the gas station. He stepped out and stood by the sidewalk and watched me as I pulled away. When I got past the intersection, I laughed out of joy and the ridiculousness of the situation. But then I realized something. I patted myself down and then began to panic. I was missing something, my phone. I was only a few blocks away, so I made a U-turn and headed back to the gas station. He was already gone. I drove home and confirmed that my phone was missing. I knew I had left it in the cup holder of my car. My phone had all of my info on it. I contemplated calling the police, but I didn't. I couldn't even sleep that night in fear of some freak stranger having my address. The next night, after getting home from our 2-day delayed Thanksgiving dinner, I found my front door was open and my entire house was trashed. I called the police with my neighbor's phone. They didn't find him in there, but they found his prints everywhere. The only thing, the prints did not match anyone on record. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to watch the latest videos.